So we're going to tear our eyes away from what is essentially binge watching the live action version of the thick of it happening right before our eyes with this new general election campaign to turn to something else, which probably in about a month or two's time is going to be all the rage with everyone out there. And that's, of course, writing the post-mortems of essentially the Conservative Party. Just exactly what on earth happened? How did they go from a party in 2010, which seemed sort of very, centrist right wing with, disagree with their policies all they want, and I do, but at least it was policy. At least you could say, okay, they're gonna do that idea. This is how they intend to do it, and follow through on that idea. I disagree with it, but hey, at least there's policy there, right? To well, what we see today with Rishi Sunak, with scrambling together, literally writing policy on the back of a napkin, saying we're going to bring back national service. So yeah, we're going to tear our eyes away from that, because I think honestly over the next couple of weeks, we're going to need a break every so often. Just like how I honestly at one point just felt completely out Boris Johnson by all the Boris Johnsoning going on at one point. I just thought, you know what, we need a break. We need to tear our eyes away from this absolute omni shambles that's going on before us, that's being presented to us. But we'll be back to it. Don't worry. Like I say, this is just a little break for us all, but we will return, of course, inevitably, to what's going on. But like I say, we're going to have a look at probably what seems to be the first post-mortem of the downfall of the Conservatives. And I'm going to be honest with you here. I think you could look at the downfall of conservatism and you could say a range of reasons why it is. And to be honest, I think it really is just multifaceted when it comes to it. The downfall was just everything, cracks in the dam continuing to be happening. No one was repairing them. And eventually, of course, finally, it all gives way and the dam just breaks through. I think that's really how you look at just what happened to sort of like the Conservative Party over a course of many years, it seems. But hey, honestly, this is something that you are going to see, like I say, with the next couple of months, just article after article after article on this. And hey, might as well get in now while the getting's good. Maybe this video will get a couple of views in after the election as well. So hey, it's a win-win situation for me and us to have a little break from the general election for the moment. So before we do go getting on into this, please do remember to have a look at the Patreon page down below. There's the Buy Me Coffee link where you can buy me coffee, the YouTube thank you button, and of course, as always, there is the Pony Club down below as well. And I have done a Pony Club video today. I've completely forgot it was Wednesday yesterday. I was convinced it was Tuesday, but there you go. Post-holiday malaise, etc. But of course, as always, thank you very much to all those people who do help and support the channel. Like I say, you can help support the channel by, again, checking out the links down below, or, again, clicking on the like and share button. So let's crack on into this then, shall we? So this is from the Financial Times, the title of How the Thatcherites Lost Their Brexit Dream and Their Party. So, honestly, you are going to see a lot of people say that Brexit was like the big cause. And it's hard not to agree. The Euroscepticism in the party has led to a lot of splits in the party, a lot of infighting in itself, and the cause of, if not the main cause of a lot of this stuff going on. But there's a lot of stuff going on within the party as well. The complete loss of any pragmatism versus a favoring of ideological purity over, pragmatism. There's a lot of stuff here. So, like I say, you're going to see a lot of these articles in the coming weeks and months trying to explain. We even went recently, yesterday, although a very long video, although this might be long as well, over, a conservative trying to look back at 14 years and say, well, actually, we need to be honest about this. And of course, if you watch that video, you'll find out he wasn't very honest about the 14 years of conservative sort of rule that we've just recently been through. So, and of course, through that, you can see just how bad the infighting is going to be in, well, little over a month's time, honestly. Like I say, I did say the countdown to the Tory Civil War starts now, just a couple of days ago. So, anyway, let's go on to this. So, to borrow from Oscar Wilde's quip about the death of little now, it would take a heart of stone to hear the wails of the free market Brexiteers without laughing. Recent weeks have seen a flurry of laments, a flurry of blame shifting, leading levers from Nigel Farage to Lord Frost. But perhaps the most striking of all was an article by Daniel Hannan, a central figure in the Brexit movement, which appeared under the headline, "The Liberal Brexit Dream is Dying," though he blamed the Europhile establishment. And again, Daniel Hannan, aka, remember, his nickname at the time was Daniel the Brain of Brexit Hannan. This was who the Leave campaign wielded out as, if you've got a question about leaving the EU, ask the Brain. Ask Daniel Hannan. And then, of course, if you had an economic question, you'd ask Patrick Minford. But then they quickly realized what Patrick Minford was saying and quickly wheeled him back in as quickly as possible. Hence, it all these questions went on to Daniel Hannan. He is a central figure of this movement, refuses to acknowledge any possibility that it is Brexit that is the problem. It is his whole precious idea, his quote 40-year crusade to leave the EU is the one that is causing the problem. Of course, as you can see here, still blaming the Europhile establishment. Well, remember, the past, 6 or 7 years, who has been in control? It has been Brexiteers. They've been the ones in the driving seat, even since 2019. Ultimately, really, that was their big moment. And yet they have not delivered on any of the so-called Brexit promises or any of that stuff. So there you go. So anyway, it continues. Hannan, of course, a thoughtful Brexiteer who called for compromise in the days after the referendum vote, exemplifies a strain of Tory leavers. The economic liberals who believed in the sovereignty arguments but saw exiting the EU as a vehicle for low tax, low regulation, and a less statist UK. And that's what they clung to. And it's surprising to actually remember that that was the case, that those were the arguments they were always arguing for when they wanted Brexit. Low tax, low regulation, and less state. But that was not the argument they were advancing. They always saw getting Brexit done as a path to that. But of course, again, didn't work out. Because when you look at what people want, they want, state services. And if you want to have those state services, well, then you've got to tax them. And if you want to lower taxes, well, then you've got to say, what is the government not going to longer do? And of course, that's when they get very nervous about it. Lower regulation, you say, okay, well, what regulations are you going to get rid of? We've been through this argument time and time again. We've seen them just have no answers to exactly what regulations specifically they were going to get rid of. And of course, well, less statist. Well, people actually quite like the state being actually quite big and powerful to be able to do stuff, shockingly enough. That's why you have, high taxes, so the state can do a lot of that stuff. But there you go. But it's also worth pointing out that point at the start that Hannan did actually call for compromise. He was not initially or followed through with the rest of his hardcore Brexiteers. He was actually calling for a compromise to at least keep some part of us maybe in the EU. And like I say, he was initially, remember, the Brexiteer who was cited on Sky News, that famous quote, I will say it every time you bring up Daniel Hannan, only a fool would leave the single market and customs union. And of course, Daniel Hannan has flip-flopped back from that position every single time. In fact, I don't even know, honestly, where he is now at the moment. Who knows where he could be on that particular position. But anyway, back to it. Instead, now they survey a landscape of higher taxes, with businesses complaining about the increased regulation, more state intervention, and even less discussion about the voluntary price caps in supermarkets. Um, Again, there you go. What a difference, they've ruled over. What a an empire they once claimed they could have achieved, but in reality, well, they ended up at Disneyland. But there you go. So this was a lament, not merely from just the lost Brexit dream, but also for a lost Conservative Party. In reality, their promised land was always a fantasy, but in allying with Tory nationalists and the Gaullists against those now seeking a softer Brexit, the Leave Liberals also surrendered the economic argument. A more active state was the price of getting Brexit. They won the war, but then lost the peace. And that just goes to show you the alliances that have gone on here, the idea and the ideology that I keep on telling you that is alive in the Conservative Party. Just right here, you've got economic liberals, Tory nationalists, Gaullists. You know, all these things are still there. There is no real, even though they keep on saying it, this is true conservatism. Meanwhile, you've got another conservative who's going, that's not true conservatism. This is true conservatism. And then another one will come forward and say, no, that's not true conservatism. This is true conservatism. And then you'll have someone else come along and go, that's not conservatism. That's con-socialism. This is true conservatism. They've got a massive, massive problem here that is not going to be easy to fix. And it is going to take a lot of weeding them out. Yesterday, we went over the article where the guy was saying, hey, any of those people who are involved in the government should just not even be involved in the future of the Tory party. They should just stand back and just let someone else go forward. But even then, there's still all that ideological problem. So even if you do get new people emerging, new faces emerging from the Tory party to take leadership positions, etc., not in opposition, they're going to still be facing the same problems. And until they really solve those fundamental problems, they're going to be arguing amongst themselves for God knows how long. And that only favors us so much more, because the longer they fight, the longer they infight, the more progressive stuff we can get done. So back to this. So this also helps another puzzle in British politics. Why are the Conservatives so angry when they've won in so many ways? That's, again, not a bad question to actually ask. For as the party now supposedly beset by obstructionism, they have actually achieved a lot of their aims. Through Brexit, they have actually changed British foreign and trade policy, taken control of immigration. They have actually redirected investment towards the left behind regions and pivoted the UK away from its pro-China stance. Again, they have done a lot of that. But how successful some of those things have been, especially inward investment to those left behind regions, is certainly questionable. So one can obviously object to all this. Much has obviously not worked out as they would wish, but it is not the record of an insignificant government, and the next election will be fought on their terrain. The rage is the fury of those Thatcherite Tories that Brexit did deliver for them, repatriating power to British politicians, and through them, the British voters. Their mistake was to think that it would change the priorities of the electorate, miraculously transforming the medium voter into Frederick Hake. The key miscalculation was Brexit's impact on their party. Since Thatcher, there have been three legs to the Tory school: the Free Marketeers, the traditionalist socialist conservatives, and the metropolitan Tories, exemplified by the leadership of David Cameron and George Osborne. And I would say now, in this post-Brexit age, there's even more stools to that leg. So there's even more legs to that stool, with legs coming off the legs in some sort of weird mutation. Where, for example, do the National Conservative Party faction fit into there? Where do the Democratic Conservatives fit in with there, funded by Corridas and Priti Patel? Where does Onward fit into all this? there's just more stuff really going on here, I think. And like I say, honestly, the civil wars that are about to take place are going to be very interesting to watch. Very, very interesting to watch. So, though this last group was, of course, more culturally liberal and economically there were still Thatcherites, they did believe in free trade, globalization, lower taxes to encourage investment, and reduce public spending. Before the referendum, the social and economic liberals were broadly aligned. However, Brexit smashed this coalition. It certainly did smash more than just that coalition. That's for certain. But the Leave Liberals were then slow to actually recognise that Brexit was also a revolt against their ideology. That's true as well. That is true. That is something worth acknowledging. That's true. It obviously was delivered by a populist arguments of those who are now hardline, completely hardline on immigration and suspicious of big business, keen on the culture wars but comfortable with more interventionist states and, of course, better funded public services. The famous Brexit pledge, after all, was more money for the NHS. And of course, that never materialized. During the referendum itself, the lines did make sense. But once it was over, instead of allying with the globalists and Remainers turned soft Brexiteers, many of the free market leavers made common cause with populists over who they never shared their economic vision. They believed that maximizing Brexit freedoms would secure the smaller state. You know, once again, you are seeing them, as we said at the beginning, there is that whole idea that if they achieve Brexit, then this is just a path to their larger aims. You're seeing this play out. That actually Brexit was not the big win it turned out to be. And I suspect in the civil wars to come, would we get maybe not in the parliamentary party, but maybe in the non-parliamentary party, where honestly a lot of the civil warring is going to take place, which will then affect what is left of the parliamentary party. Well, how much ever is left of the parliamentary party, we'll see when we get the general election results. That's where most of this battle is going to take place. And I do think there is going to be a significant part of that party which has been sat there as Remainers and rejoiners, the soft Brexiteers who have ultimately now realized how bad Brexit has gone and changed their minds. You will see a faction, I think, emerge of a very pro-Europhile element within the Tory party. And when that kicks off, oh boy, will you see, will you see, you know, when you see a real true fight break out there. That will be interesting should that happen. But I do think that has a lot of possibility of happening in that part. That is certainly sure. So back to this. So key UK service industries and, of course, the prosperous Southern voters were then sacrificed to bad trade deals that were built a new Tory election coalition. This delivered victory, but it handed the party to populists who then weakened, who then shared their own economic values. The clues were always there, not least in the openly interventionist Boris Johnson's F businesses outburst. The pandemic destroyed their room for maneuver by wrecking public finances, but then the pass had already been sold. Their desperate attempt to try and now reinvent this was to abandon a core belief in fiscal prudence for the chaos of Liz Truss's government. It shredded the Tory reputation for any economic competence and the free market cause. And that is it. It's not just Brexit is going to be the permanent albatross around people's necks. It's the fact that even now you have Tories who maybe at one point were very, very pro Liz Truss, but are now, no, keep her at least an arm's length away from me, please. But we'll repeat some of the exact same things that Liz Truss, as we have seen, been repeating for the past, couple of years, even since her, great tour of America, and she released a book of 10 years to save the West. Britannia Unchained was there for a reason, to try and spread that message. And some Tories still are spreading that message of this free market, you know, low regulation, low tax state. But of course, they don't want to accept that there is, well, there might be downsides to this. Maybe the voters don't actually want that. And one of the big things that has happened has been almost the break between the parliamentary party, the non parliamentary party, and the rest of the voting public. There seems to have been all these, maybe the anchors of reality, maybe we'll call them, that kept them sort of maybe sane and maybe pragmatic, seem to have just been completely and utterly cut loose, especially with Liz Truss, which will also be a permanent, albatross round their neck. Uh, you've just had another opportunity where if Rishi Sunak really wanted to, he could have got rid of Liz Truss. But of course, we've seen that before, play out before with many other different conservatives. He didn't take his opportunity to get rid of Liz Truss. Who knows? Maybe the next conservative leader might, maybe be willing to just ditch Liz Truss once and for all. But hey, we'll see what happens in the future, right? So, but even when Truss used her only party conference speech as leader to rail against the now anti-growth coalition, she failed to notice that it was actually sitting right in front of her in the rows of the NIMBYs. NIMBYism rife within the Tory party, absolutely rife. It has been one of their biggest problems they have not, confronted, and it will still be a big problem they will not, confront on that. The immigration hawks, the urbanite hating culture warriors. The party is now locked into a low growth economic model and a belief in spending cuts, which struggles to be specific. As I said, when you want to cut spending somewhere, well, okay, what exactly is it you are going to cut? What exactly is the state going to cut? Once again, that's where you don't get specifics. It was all just going to be covered by this huge growth that was going to happen. Of course, that didn't happen. Exactly the opposite happened. She really crashed the gilts market, which also almost destroyed the UK pension industry. And as I've said many times, if you think now is economically bad, could have been far economically worse. And remember, these are the very same people who want to take the independence and the power away from the Bank of England, which stopped that crisis from getting worse, to them, because they would have sat back and just let it happen. They were an hour away from, I think, one of the biggest UK pension industries, the way it's sort of told, going bankrupt. And the Bank of England stepped in to stop that from happening. Could you imagine Tories, these free market fundamentalist Tories, stepping in at with an hour to midnight to stop that from happening? The danger then would be that someone like Liz Truss or etc., one of these free market fundamentalists, just turns around and just goes, "Oh no, that's the plan. That's the market responding. That's the market going, because those are just zombie companies that deserve to die." You can see why preserving the independence of the Bank of England might actually be quite important. But anyway, that's a topic for another time. So back to it. So, in fairness, now the world has changed. Free trade, globalism, and cooperation have now given way to competing power blocks. The pivot to Asia, conceding with a retreat from the latest market, while climate change and energy security demand more state intervention. The upshot is the party's center of gravity and electoral calculations have also shifted to meet this new target voter, who is now socially conservative and more economically left-leaning. The populists do have the upper hand. The neoliberal argument will have to be won all over again. So yes, the free market Tories lost their Brexit dream, their economic model, and maybe their party too. But it was not stolen by the Europhile establishment. They traded it away in just another bad Brexit deal. So I do really think that there is really how this sort of happened. I do not see this happening though. The party's center of gravity have shifted. I do not see that at all. I would really disagree in the fact that you have seen them really go hard and chase after reform, the reform vote, which is a really tiny number of a percentage of votes, as we've discussed before. When you look at left, right, and centrists, which is the largest vote share any party should be really going after? Well, ultimately, it's the centrists in the middle. You know, they are the ones that dominate sort of the voting pool. If you want to sort of attract more voters, you've got to be centrist, and of course, you've got to throw the occasional bone to the sort of the left and right of your party, but chasing what seems to be at the moment to be 12 to 15%, although now Nigel Farage is back in the game. This once again changes the whole electoral calculation again. We don't know, but I would certainly agree that the party has sort of shifted back to a right centrist position, because I don't see it. I really do not see it. And if anything, you are seeing the party saying all these people who are potentially going to be left, all these people who are ready and preparing for this, who have just gone, right, we've lost, but don't worry, because we'll be back in 5 years with an even more hard right version of what we were. Yeah, no. There currently really is no uh you know right, sort of centrist right power block in the Conservative Party left when you look at it. Doesn't seem to be there whatsoever. But there you go. Like I say, why? They're going to spend years infighting, bickering, losing elections, losing campaigns, and it's just going to make them even worse. And as I said before, this offers us massive opportunities to go out and do a lot of really progressive things. Because even after this election, I can guarantee you, Farage reform probably won't go anywhere. They might maybe change the name of the party, but they'll still be there. So that'll be splitting the right vote. Meanwhile, you know, we need to get the the center, the left centrist, and the left on board that we can do a lot of really progressive things if we are willing to sort of go forward and sort of really push for them. And we are sort of seeing that. Um, you know, PR more popular than it has ever even been, even before prior to the 2012 referendum we had on the alternative vote. So there is a lot of really positive things to look forward to. I've said it before. I think Keir Starmer is going to be a lot more progressive than people think. I think he's going to be a lot better than people think, to be honest. We saw the exact same thing with people on the left saying the exact same thing about Biden, but he's turned out to do quite a number of good things for like America, and and especially when you look at like workers' rights in America. I think it's Kyle Kalinske said he would still vote for Biden just on the basis of what he's done on sort of the workers' rights things and stuff like that. So there is a massive opportunity there. There is a massive opportunity for us along those lines, and we just now have to take it. We just now have to take it and seize this opportunity that is being put before us. The last thing we need to do is fall into our own infighting, our own, dramas, our own, ideological purity testing, and go, right, in order to get this, we might have to say, well, maybe we're willing to compromise on this as long as we get, this, or we could achieve this if we compromise maybe in some of the areas on that. That's fine. Hey, as I've said before, look at the Canadian Parliament, look at Justin Trudeau getting the supply and confidence agreement from the Liberal Party. Look at the stuff they got from that and compromising on some stuff. So, it is possible. It is really possible. And of course, the more you do progressive things, the more you can show to people, well, see like how good this progressive thing is. Let's advance on that. And as you look at the polls, people want progressive things. Even a lot of conservatives actually want some of these progressive things that surprisingly we want as well. But there you go. So as always, thank you very much for watching. And of course, as always, we'll see you all next time.